Hello and welcome to Train Signal. You are watching Writing and Editing Scripts. When I first started using Ubuntu Linux full-time, I printed out a command reference and made sure that every day I tried a few commands on the list. I'd simply fire up a terminal and try out the commands, switches, and all manner of combinations and variations. Even though some of them I never found use for in my daily ruminations on my own laptop, I somehow knew this information might come in handy one day. So when the time came to get my Linux Plus certification, I was eternally grateful for the time that I'd spent perusing the command line. One of the most powerful things you can do from the command line is to combine those individual commands into scripts. Linux administrators rely on scripts to automate some of their more tedious and complex tasks. Scripts is a topic that goes far beyond what we'll cover here, but for the purposes of certification, you'll need to understand some of the basics. So in this lesson, we'll review the components of a script, along with the commands and conditional expressions you can use to increase the complexity. Let's start off with shell script components on the next slide. Thinking back about the company we presented in the course scenario, TechCorp, they will need to transfer all their Windows user accounts to Linux. Now there are tools that can handle this process, which might involve creating the user, assigning permissions, and setting up a home directory, but you could also use a script for this. A script is a text file that contains a series of commands to be executed by the shell. Since most systems use the Bash shell by default, most scripts are written in the Bash scripting language. But you'll also find that most scripts will run in any of the more common shells like CSH or TCSH. All scripts must begin with the line you see in the image on the screen. $, exclamation point, /bin, /sh, or you'll see also /bash, because sh is a symbolic link to bash. The $, if you recall, represents a command line, but combined with the exclamation point, this indicates that what follows is a script. And the rest is the path to the program that will interpret the script. You'll hear this line referred to as shebang, hashbang, hashpling, or poundbang. After you've written a script, you could run it by typing the shell program name, or bash, followed by the name of the script. But it's preferable to change the file's permission and make it executable. And you do this with the chmod command that we learned in the Managing User Resources with Quotas and File Permissions lesson. The command syntax is chmod space a plus x space name of the new script, where A is for all users and X is for the execute permission, and new script, of course, is the name of a new script. Remember the path variable we talked about in the Linux shell lesson? That variable contains the list of directories where Linux will look to find executable files corresponding to the file names you type at the command line. So with that in mind, if you plan to run a script regularly, it's best to store it in one of the directories in your path. Otherwise, you'll end up typing the full path to the command in order to run it. User local bin is always a good choice. You can include just about any command, internal or external, along with any parameters or options into a script. What you see on the screen is a very basic script that echoes a string and the date on the screen. Let's try this out in real time. Let's move over and launch a terminal window. Applications, System Tools, and Terminal. And to compose our script, we're going to use the Linux community's most beloved text editor, Vi, which we covered in the GNU and Unix commands lesson. So let's type in Vi, followed by the name of the script, and I'll call mine testscript, testscript.txt, and hit enter. You'll see that the Vi editor opens in command mode. Now to get it to insert mode, you have to hit either A or I. Another thing to note before we do that is that the name of the file is always displayed at the bottom of the screen when you're in command mode. So let's type in I to go into insert mode. And from here, let's type in the line that belongs at the top of every Linux script. And that is $, exclamation point, /bin, /bash, or whichever shell you might be using, if it's TCSH or CSH. Again, this line is called shebang, or a couple of other names that we've just covered. And let's hit enter. On the next line, we're going to use the echo command, which displays output on the screen. So we'll type in echo, ECHO, space, and in quotes, I'm going to put I love Linux. I love Linux. And we'll close the quote. We'll hit enter again. And just for fun, let's include the date command, DATE, which displays the current system date and time info. Now, do you recall how to write changes to the file and quit from Vi? Well, first we have to exit insert mode, and we do that by hitting the escape key. From there, we type in a colon, and that brings our cursor to the bottom here. Then we type in WQ for write and quit. We hit enter. Now let's type in ls just to see if our script is indeed here. And there it is, testscript.txt. Now the next thing that we want to do is make it executable. And again, we do that with the chmod command. Syntax is chmod space A for all plus X for execute, and the name of the script, which is testscript.txt. And we'll hit enter. Let's type in ls-l, which again gives us the long listing. And we can see for the file, we now have execute permissions for both owner, group, and world permissions. Now let's execute the file by typing in bash space testscript.txt. Hit enter. And we can see what's displayed on the screen here is our echo command, I love Linux, and then we have the date and time. You may have noticed that I didn't copy this to a directory on the path, but that's just because we're doing some testing at this point. And that's why I had to type in the bash command in front of the script as well. Okay, let's head back to the presentation. Along with basic commands, you can launch programs with the script. For instance, if you wanted to launch a mail program, you would type in the full path to the program. And if you remember, many system commands are located in user bin. And you can use an ampersand if you want the script to execute the next line without waiting for the first one to finish. But as some programs rely on the output of another in order to execute, you won't always want to use this option. Let's move on to take a look at how to use file manipulation commands in scripts. Another of the neat things that you can do with scripts is to use some of the basic file manipulation commands that we've already learned. Things like ls, which lists the contents of a directory, space, and we'll call it loopdemo.txt. And hit enter. We're going to hit I to enter insert mode. And we're going to type in our first line, which is £, exclamation point, bin, bash, and hit enter. Now let's enter our for loop. So we're going to type in for space x in, and we'll need an open curly brace, 1.3, which tells us that we're going to execute that from 1 to 3 times. And let's close the brace and go to the next line. Next line is do. And next line, we're going to have an echo command. We're going to type in echo space quotation mark, I am the script master. Close that with the quote. And then we end the for loop with the done command. Okay, again we have our opening line here, which tells us this is a script. We have the beginning of the for loop, which says for x, we're going to repeat this action from 1 to 3 times. And the action is to echo the command, I am the script master. Okay, let's hit escape to go back to command mode. And we're going to type in £WQ for save and quit. Okay, now let's go ahead and make this executable with the chmod command. A for all plus x space loopdemo.txt. Okay, let's do an ls -l to make sure our permissions are applied. And here's loop demo, and we have execute for owner, for group, and for world. Now let's execute the script by typing in bash space loopdemo.txt. And we see that it echoed our command 3 times, or our statement rather, 3 times. I am the script master. Let's take a look at another conditional expression, functions, on the next slide. The last of the type of conditional expressions that we'll cover is functions. Functions are part of a script that performs a specific subtask and can be called by name from other parts of the script. Functions are represented by parentheses, and they have commands enclosed in curly braces. Let's try out a script with a function. Let's switch back to our terminal window. Now we're back at our terminal window, and let's create a script called fscript. To do so, let's type in vi space fscript.txt. Okay, we're going to hit A this time to enter insert mode. And we're going to type in our initial line, just pound, exclamation point, /bin /bash, and hit enter. Now let's create a function by typing in function with the parentheses and the open curly brace. Actually, we forgot to put in the function name, so let's enter that now. The function is going to be called hello. And we'll hit the end key to go back to the end of the line and hit enter. From here, we'll just do another simple echo command. So we'll type in echo space howdy. And we'll close the curly brace. On the next line, we'll close it here. And you can also do that on the previous line as well. We're going to end it with the hello function name. And for here, we're ready to save it. So let's hit the escape key to go back to command mode. I'm going to hit WQ for write and quit. Let's go ahead and make it executable with the chmod command. chmod space A plus X space fscript.txt. And ls-l Rather, we'll confirm that we have the right permissions. And we do. We have execute for owner, for group, and for world, as you can see here. Now let's execute the script with the bash command. Bash space fs script.txt. And hit enter. And we can see that our echo command worked, and we have howdy printed back on the screen. Okay, let's go back to the presentation. And that concludes our lesson on writing and editing scripts. Let's review what we've learned on the next slide. We've just barely touched the surface of what you can do with scripts. Now, some would argue that this is a skill that takes at least a year to develop fully, and I certainly wouldn't argue with that. Certification candidates should understand the basic structure, syntax, commands, and expressions that can be used to compose a script. To recap, in this lesson, we learned about the components of a shell script, some of the commands that can be used within the script, and how to use conditional expressions to introduce true, false, and other multiple option scenarios. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next lesson.